Hello, and welcome to an EAS Consulting Group webinar on claim substantiation for cosmetics in the U.S. Today's presenter is Senior Regulatory and Scientific Consultant Dr. Paula Brock. Dr. Brock facilitates food, dietary supplement, and cosmetic label compliance reviews and develops marketing materials for FDA and FTC compliance. She provides scientific services such as clinical study design, data analysis, herb-drug interaction studies, product formulation, safety and efficacy of ingredients, ingredient monograph writing, safety opinions, and adverse event investigations. Today's presentation is on claim substantiations of cosmetics, where Dr. Brock will present different types of evidence on how to substantiate claims in cosmetic products. Please note we will have a Q&A session as time allows following the webinar. You can enter your questions into the Zoom Q&A feature. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I'll hand it over to Paula.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining in today. We'll just go ahead and get started. Discuss for about 45 minutes and see how much time we have for Q&A. Claim substantiation for cosmetics in the US. Let's first start with the very basic definitions before we dive into more of the scientific method. Claim substantiation is a legal requirement in the US. According to Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act, or FDNC, a cosmetic shall be deemed to be misbranded if its labeling is false or misleading in any particular. It's not further described in the regulation what that particular means, but anything on the label or labeling, the label is attached to the product or any marketing material associated with that product. And that will include claims, any claims that is made on the product, either the effect of the product or the performance of the product. And that leads to the next thing, the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, which mostly governs the advertising. So any false advertising will go to FTC. They say that substantiation is required for any product claim, and that would be efficacy or performance. So efficacy is more related to the actual formula and the benefit that the product would have. Performance could be associated with comparison to a different product, or it could be something specific to the product. For example, in cosmetics, we'll see a product that claims to be hypoallergenic. So that's more a performance claim. And FTC also says that substantiation of health-related claims in particular will have to come in the form of competent and reliable scientific data. And we'll look into that today. Now, just setting the stage a little bit, although this webinar today is not on regulatory, it's more on the scientific side, but cosmetic claims, or the definition of cosmetics according to the FDNC Act, Section 201I, is that cosmetics are products intended to be applied to the human body for four things: cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, or altering the appearance. Some of those are pretty straightforward. Cleansings are pretty straightforward what that means. Now, the other ones, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, and altering the appearance, are a little bit more in the gray area. So some claims might fit into those and some might not necessarily fit into those categories. It's always good to have an opinion on the claims that you were intended to have on the product and whether they are cosmetic claims. They're allowed to be claims in cosmetics or not. And a little bit further on that, we'll take one specific example throughout this webinar today. And that is a claim that the product reduces the appearance of wrinkles. So in this case, that claim will fit into that category that the product promotes attractiveness. But the product will be considered a cosmetic if the reduction of wrinkles occurs through because the product moisturizes the skin. So it's via moisturizing the skin, or if the product has features that will hide the wrinkles. And of course, an easy example would be makeup cosmetics. Now, if the product affects the structure or function of the skin, it will actually be considered a drug or a medical device. So if the product promotes, removes the wrinkles, or increase the skin production of collagen, those will be affecting the structure and function of the skin. So technically, that would be not considered to be a cosmetic. And we always recommended to get opinions from attorneys or regulatory opinions on whether your claim will fit into a cosmetic claim. Now, there are different types of claims that are allowed, right? So we can, for cosmetics, we're talking about either claims that are objective claims or claims that are subjective. And a lot of claims that are made in cosmetic products are subjective. And depending on the type of the claim, the data that's needed to substantiate the claim will be different. Right? So for objective claims, those are effects that the product have that can be objectively measured. Right? It can be measured by a device, be measured by if we're talking about the color or even wrinkles, by images in a specific standardized and specific matter in a software, for example. Right? So those are objective claims: moisture, wrinkles, color, growth of hair, nail. Those can be objectively measured. And in those types of claims, the substantiation will then have to come in the form of scientific data. And that would be, for example, a well-conducted clinical study. And scientific data on the different ingredients of the product will add to the evidence. But as we'll talk a little bit more later on this topic, because cosmetics have many ingredients and the excipients of cosmetic products tend to have an effect as well, then the data on just the individual ingredients will not be sufficient. We'll need a study done on the finished product. Now, looking at the other types of claims, so the subjective claims, those are effects that they're subjective to the consumer's perception. And the most straightforward example is the scent, and say smells. Whether the scent is pleasant or not, it's really up to the consumer. And those are not objectively measured. Right? So the substantiation for subjective types of claims will come in the form of consumer surveys. And example would be a well-conducted independent consumer survey or consumer home test. Now we'll look into when the FTC describes that substantiation will have to come in a form of a competent and reliable evidence. Let's look at what that means. Again, using the same example, the objective claim in this product is that the product helps make wrinkles and fine lines less visible, and that the visible results occur in only 1 week. So those are objective claims. The competent and reliable evidence to substantiate that type of claim. One come from standardized method. So in this case, we're measuring wrinkles and fine lines on the face. So we'll be using a specific software to take pictures of that particular area of the face, and that should be in a standardized method. Second is the analyst, the data analyst, at least the data analyst, should be blinded to the images. And we'll talk a lot more about different types of blinding methods. But the data analyst should be blinded to the images. Either if the study if the design of the study is you comparing the images from before using a product or after using a product, then the data analyst should not know if the images were taken before or after product use. If the study is comparing to a control, then the data analyst would not know which participants used the new tested product or the control product. Now, that leads to the next thing. It's to evaluate whether there is a need for a control group. Most of the times, the answer is yes. Studies that have a control group would be of a higher quality, and control group reduces a lot of bias, and we'll discuss control groups later as well. To evaluate whether there's a need of a control group. And the studies can add opinions of surveys, right? So survey opinions of participants, they're not reliable evidence to substantiate those objective claims, but they can be added as part of the study. And we'll look at more of that as well. So let's start with some examples. So this is case 1. So this was a study in which all participants at baseline, and we'll call that visit 0. At baseline, all the participants were instructed to wash their face and use the same cleanser in a way to standardize the baseline. Right? So they all use the same product, wash their face, and they're asked to not apply any product on the face for 1 day. So from visit 0 until the next visit, they're not allowed to use any product on their face. So the next day, the participants returned to the study site. We'll say that it was visit 1, and the pictures were taken in a standardized manner. The participants were given the test product and were asked to apply it daily. Because the interest is, or part of the claim is that the product works after 1 week. The effects are observed within 1 week. Then we'll ask the participants to return 1 week later. So we'll say that that's visit 2, and the pictures were again taken of the wrinkles were taken in a standardized manner. Then a blinded data analyst evaluated the pictures without knowing which pictures were from before and which pictures were from after product use. And the results, so it was concluded after analyzing the images that the product did reduce wrinkles and fine lines based on the pictures that were taken after the product in comparison to the pictures taken before the product. Now, at first, we might take this study as, yes, it's sufficient to substantiate the claim that the product reduces or the appearance of fine line and wrinkles. But let's look at some of the issues with this specific study. So why would the data not be reliable? One, because the pictures taken at visit 1, at a baseline, were taken on a very dry skin. Right? The participants were asked to wash the face with the cleanser and not use any product for 1 day. Any product that moisturizes the skin could have an effect on improving appearance of wrinkles. But this study does not show that this specific product reduces fine lines and wrinkles. And what would be some corrective measures to make the data reliable? One would be the baseline pictures taken at the normal skin, not dry skin. So if this study is designed to compare the new product with the normal or standard way that the participants were accustomed to do, right? So some might just wash their face with water and not apply anything. Some would use a cleanser and then apply a moisturizer. So we could compare with what was normally used. Or participants should have gone through a run-in phase, for example, where they all applied the same moisturizer for a week in a way to try to standardize all the participants. Then the baseline pictures were taken at the end of that run-in phase, and the test product was applied for another week. So this would be basically comparing the new product with a standard moisturizer. Now let's look at a different example. The company that sells the test product organized a focus group to assess whether the new product has any effect on the facial wrinkles. The company obtained a skin device to measure wrinkles. 10 employees from that focus group used the device to capture the images of their facial wrinkles. They started using the new product according to label directions. And after 1 week, they used that skin device again to capture the images. And one of them read the instructions of the skin device and did the analysis of the images. Then at the end, they concluded that the new product does reduce the appearance of wrinkles. Okay, let's look at now why this study does not necessarily add reliable evidence. So in general, focus groups are not competent and reliable evidence. Studies need to follow the scientific method with a proper study design as well as sample size, blinding methods, control group, and population. And all those will depend on the claim that is made and the type of product. And in this case, the corrective measures would be one, with the sample size, we only had 10 participants. We need to increase the number of participants for any statistical analysis. And a lot of times we ask, especially currently we add on to any study whether the results were also clinically meaningful. And that's also very important. First, we start with the statistical analysis. Right? So in order to measure whether a product has efficacy on a specific outcome, then we first need to apply the statistics. The results have to be statistically significant. The statistic will deal with the biases, a lot of biases that can be around the study. Once the results were statistically significant, either comparing to before, using product or control group, and we'll see different study designs. If the results are statistically significant, then we can also add the component of whether that was clinically meaningful or it was meaningful to the participants. By adding, in addition to the efficacy outcome measures, for example, in this case, we're measuring the size of wrinkles and fine lines with standardized images. We also add opinions from the participant surveys with questions, or open questions, or surveys, whether the participant liked or not the product, for example. So it will be the perception of whether the product worked or not. Now, the second issue that we had with the focus group in this case was expertise. To use the device and analyze the data from that software, we need some expertise. Blinding, in this case, the data analyst was not blinded to treatment. Population, the employees of the company might not be a good representation of the entire consumer population, or even the consumer population that will use the product. And standardization. So in this case, the focus group had no washout or running phase, but more importantly, had no protocol. Some studies might not need a washout or running phase, but the studies need a protocol. And so if the study was designed to compare the new product with the normal standard practices that the consumers had, then those practices need to be documented, right? And the participants should follow that throughout. If they always use a daily moisturizer, they should be used that daily moisturizer throughout. Or if they don't use it, they wash their face with water but don't use any product, then they should use that throughout. So it's important to have a protocol. Let's see, now let's move into then the study intent. So what is the questions or the outcome that we're interested in to make that claim? What really dictate what type of study or type of data that is needed to substantiate the claim. And there is a difference between efficacy and effectiveness, right? When we're looking at efficacy of a product, or the efficacy, it's intended to assess the effects of the actual formula, right? The ingredients that are in the formula and how they affect that outcome. In this case, we're looking at fine lines and wrinkles. Effectiveness studies are intended to assess more of the method of use of the product, which will be mostly compliance. So the effectiveness would assess whether the consumers are actually using the product the way that it's intended according to label directions. And that will completely affect how the product is efficacious. If the consumers are not using the product, then there was not going to be a benefit on wrinkles, right? So the effectiveness of the product will influence how efficacious the product is. But when we're looking at to substantiate our objective type of claims, such as product reduced fine lines and wrinkles, then we need to look at the efficacy. And so again, the substantiation of a claim that product reduces fine lines and wrinkles, because it's our objective claim, need proof of efficacy. So that the formula actually works on the wrinkles. And in those studies, for efficacy studies, it's assumed that the consumers use the product as directed by the study coordinators, or the investigators. Now, the studies can always implement the effectiveness into that same study. So the efficacy studies can evaluate compliance. It can also evaluate, analyze the data per protocol, and so they're more of a controlled method of use. So, for example, participants that did not use the product as used, they skipped days, or did not use the right amount that was recommended. And the data from those participants can be removed, and the analysis is only done on the data from participants that actually follow the protocol. But the study can also, in addition to a per protocol analysis, can do an intent to treat analysis, which will assess more of the effectiveness of the product. So include all the participants independently, whether they use as directed or not. So let's look at another case. So in this case, the participants were randomized to a new product or control group. The new product was in the final package, final label, all the claims made, right? The control product was a commonly used moisturizer, also in its own final package. And the results showed that the new product was better than the standard moisturizing, reducing the fine lines and wrinkles. Now, why is in this case the data is not reliable for the efficacy part, right? So we're trying to substantiate that the product has an efficacy in reducing fine lines and wrinkles, because the packaging could have influenced the amount of product used, and that has actually been shown. And if the product is not used correctly, then it will influence the effect. And thus it's unclear if the results were due to the actual formula or if it was due to the consumer's behavior. And in this case, the study was open label. There was no blinding. The packages were different, so the participants knew that they were taking a new product, or they're taking a standard commonly used product. And that can also contribute to the consumer's behavior. And it could go either way. Sometimes when the consumers have a perception that the product is good, so they like the packaging, they might like the scent of the product, they'll use as directed on the label, as the directions of the label. When there's a perception that the product is not as efficacious, let's say it's not a new product, or they don't like the scent, then they might either not use the product at all, or they might use more, right, than the amount directed on the label. And so the data could be, sometimes the control group had a better effect on the wrinkles, perhaps because the consumers used more of the product. And so the packaging can really influence the results. So in this case, what would be the corrective measures would be when implement blinding, the new product, so the test article and the control, the standard moisturizer, should be placed in the same packaging, a neutral package, if we're looking to evaluate the efficacy of the product. Because again, the packaging influences the amount of product and it influences the product's effect on the skin. And the other corrective measure would be implement the compliance. So we measure the compliance and analyze the data both as per protocol and intention to treat. That way you have data for the efficacy and as well as effectiveness. Now let's briefly look at the different study designs and then we'll look at different other types of claims in cosmetic products. Parallel study design is the most standard, although in cosmetic products might not be used as much in comparison to drug products. So parallel designs, the participants are randomized to either the intervention. So in this case, we're looking at a new anti-wrinkle cream or a control group. The control group could be the same base without the new active ingredients. They're thought to be the ones contributing to the wrinkle, the effect on the wrinkle. And the products are used at the same time. So control and intervention, all the participants are using the product at the same time. A different type of study design would be the before versus after, can also be called pre or post or historical control. So those studies do not have a control group. They rely on what has happened historically, right? So the data is obtained before product use, then after the product use, without a control group. And in those types of studies, the main issues that it does not account to effect of time, and a lot of other things that are around that can happen through that time. And we'll look at examples of that later. And those types of studies are only recommended or to be used when a control group is unethical. Right? So when the new product, when it's pretty much known that the new product is going to have a beneficial effect, so it becomes unethical to have participants on a placebo, or when there is no other treatment for that condition. Otherwise, that type of study, the before versus after type of study design, it's a lower quality of data. And so let's look at why that type of studies it's a lower quality data. So one will be looking at control groups, right? So before versus after study or historical controls don't have a specific control group implemented. The first thing is the control group is needed when the outcome measure is subjective. Right? So when we're looking at surveys and participants perceive the effects of product use, there is a lot of risk of a placebo effect, right? So the control group will ensure the results are not due to a placebo effect. So especially when the outcome measure is subjective, control group is necessary. And the second part is, I briefly mentioned before, is to account for the effect of time. And so many outcome measures get better over time. The easiest example being acute diseases. For cosmetic products outcomes, they actually tend to get worse over time, right? So if we're taking the example of the wrinkles tend to get worse with age. However, many of those outcome measures are influenced by weather or diet, right? So for example, we're looking at the skin, the skin tends to be drier in dry summer, but also drier in winters. And so if this study was designed to start in the summer and ends in the fall, then the skin might get better on its own just because the weather changed. And those effects will be independently of product use. And so the lack of a control group would make that data not reliable. Other examples, skin redness that could be higher in the spring due to allergies, also influenced by diet. Nail and hair can also be, the health of nail and hair can also be influenced by diet. And so when the studies designed without a control group, then a lot of those factors, all those confounding factors really need to be looked at and controlled with protocols and following up with participants. Now, there are several challenges with control groups, especially with cosmetic products, finding an actual true placebo. Right? The cosmetics have many ingredients, and the excipients also have a lot of excipients will have an effect on the skin. And so in a true placebo is that product that have no effect on the outcome measure. Control group could be, one example, control group could be the base product without the newly tested active ingredients. And in this type of study, the results will really be showing that the new ingredients have a positive effect or no effect on the outcome on wrinkles, for example. Different control group would be standard treatment. And so these studies are intended to evaluate the new product, whether the new product is better than a standard moisturizer. And importantly, when using control groups, we need to look at baseline characteristics of the participants. We need to make sure that both groups will have, in this case, we look at wrinkles, will have the same severity of wrinkles, age, which also influences that outcome measure, the wrinkles, and skin type. And again, the last thing is the packaging. As we mentioned, packaging of the control group and test articles should be the same for the studies that aim to look at the efficacy of the formula. Now, the last study design that I have here for today is the crossover design. There are many advantages of a crossover design. So crossover designs, the participants, they will serve as their own control. So we're looking at a group that receives the control, group that receives a new product. Let's say we're only looking for a week in this case. Then we do a washout phase, and then the participants cross over. So the participants that were first using the control would then use the new product, and the participants that were using the new product then use the control on the second after the washout. And the data is analyzed based on the end, right, after product use in comparison to before product used. But the participant really serve as its own control. In cases where the outcome measure, there's any concern that there's no way to standardize, right? So wrinkles can be very different. We can never have two groups with the exact same baseline. Then a crossover design is a very good method. Right? So other advantages, use fewer participants. So less costly. Participants when serve as their own control, which reduce the issues with the baseline characteristics. The disadvantage of crossover designs is that in the effect of that new product intervention has to be washed out before a crossover. That can be tricky on some products, right? Products that we know or it's expected the results last long. To reduce washout issues, one option is have two baseline, right? So you have the baseline from the beginning of the study and a different baseline after the crossover phase. let's look at different parameters that for all these types of studies. So one would be randomization. Randomization just means their participants are randomly assigned to control or intervention. And randomization is important because it reduces bias in selecting participants, right? Selected participants that are likely or unlikely to respond to the product. And then blinding, we mentioned that before, the different blinding methods or types. The study can be single blinded. In that case, only the participants will not know which product they're taking. And that's important because to reduce participants' dropout in product use and any changes with product use. Double blinded would be better because now the participants, but as the investigators also are, do not know which product is being used. And important because the study investigators' behavior about the product can influence the participants' behavior about the product, and will also reduce the biases in the data analysis. As we mentioned, the data analysts should be blinded to the treatment as well. Now, I'd like to mention about literature data. Literature data on the individual ingredients that are present in the product will add to the evidence, and a lot of those could be mechanistic types of data that show that the new ingredient, for example, has an effect on wrinkles. But alone, they will not be sufficient to substantiate claims on most cosmetics, right? And the reason is because we talked about the excipients in cosmetics. Many of those will have a biological effect. Many of those excipients are moisturizers, and thus the substantiation will have to be done on the finished product. The excipients could also have a negative effect, right? It could be skin irritants, which will then negate the positive effect of any active ingredient. So in cosmetic products, most of the time, and you really need to look at your particular case. If the excipients have an effect, then you have to measure the product as a whole. And I have an example here. For example, the published literature demonstrates that niacinamide creams are effective in reducing the appearance of wrinkles in clinical studies. Now, the creams, in all the studies, the creams contain many excipients that are not all present in the new tested product. And the new product also has other fragrances. Right? So all those would contribute to an effect, either positive or negative effect. Now, for the last few minutes that we have for today, I'd like to go to different types of claims that are very common in cosmetic products. One is dermatologist approved. That type of claim can be easily challenged, right? So it's very important. And those claims that can be easily challenged is basically because there's not a definition of how the substantiation should be done, right? So has been recommended. I have heard from different law firms that are specialized in this manner. They will recommend that a substantiation is done by a complete survey with at least 200 dermatologists, right? Because it's a very general claim that the products are dermatologist approved. Another way to not take that risk, right? Then you be very specific with the claim. Instead of saying that the product is dermatologist approved, you change the claim to say the product is recommended by the American Board of Dermatology. And so you focused to the American Board of Dermatologists, and you get data from that group instead of an overall nationwide survey with dermatologists. And there's a difference between the claim that the product was tested by dermatologists than that the product is dermatologist approved. Right? So the claim that the product was tested by dermatologists could be substantiated by a clinical study that was conducted with the finished product. in which the dermatologist was the investigator. Okay, so very important to look at the wording and the meaning of the wording of the claim. Now, a different one that's very common in different products, including cosmetics, is scientifically and clinically proven. When you look at that component scientifically, it basically means that that claim is backed up by scientific studies. Clinically, that is backed up by clinical studies. Right? Now, the word proven is the word that is very easy to be challenged. There's not a specific number of studies that it's needed to prove the results that specific effect, let's say wrinkle, is proven to work. Right? So that, because of that reason, is very easily challenged. Recommendations is to basically stay away from that from general claims. Like change the claim to scientifically and clinically studied. And when we say proven, the company could be challenged if they have one study, but can also be challenged if they have 5 studies. Is that sufficient to say that it's proven, the effect is proven? Other common claims, hypoallergenic, that's another claim that is not defined in the regulation. So that because there's no specific definition of how to substantiate a hypoallergenic claim, the companies can decide what that means, but also then it's easy to be challenged and open for litigation. In general, we just need to ensure that the claim is truthful. For a hypoallergenic claim, depending on the wording, it would say if the claim is that the product is gentle on the skin, patch tests in subjects with sensitive skin will likely be sufficient. It's a well-conducted independent patch test with a large number of subjects. For a hypoallergenic claim specifically, then we actually have to compare. Right? So it would be a patch study in subject with sensitive skin, but that it's comparing to a product that does not have the claim. So basically a product that it's not hypoallergenic. And because many products can be hypoallergenic, then you have to show that this specific product with this claim is hypoallergenic. You have to compare to a standard without that claim, a product without that claim. Now, the last general one I have here, often used in cosmetics, is cruelty-free. Similar to hypoallergenic claim, there's not a specific definition in the regulation, and the companies then can define what the meaning of that claim is, and again, can be easily challenged. To ensure the claim is truthful, it can be tricky because many cosmetic ingredients were tested at some point. They were tested in animals. And most companies will rely on that data to substantiate either safety or efficacy claims. Now, in order to reduce the risk of litigation in this case, it would be better to clarify, be very specific on the claims. For example, does cruelty-free on the product means that the ingredients in the product are no longer tested in animals? Or does it mean that the finished product was not tested in animals? The better the claim is clear, it's specific, less of a chance of litigation. And we're right on 46 minutes here, so just have a summary and we'll open for some questions. So we just discussed in general what are subjective and objective claims. Objective claims in cosmetic products, they need to be substantiated with clinical trials that are designed to appropriately address that claim. Subjective claims would be complete surveys. Literature data will add to the evidence on the ingredients in the product, but because the excipients in most cosmetic products, the excipients also have an effect. You need a study on the finished product. And the word of the claim needs to be truthful to the data. The more specific the wording of the claim is, less of a chance of being challenged. I would like to leave this slide for last. Can always reach out to me with questions or services, or our senior director that manages all projects related to claims and labeling. Reach out to us if you have questions, if you'd like to know what types of services we do and how we can help you design your study and substantiate the claims of your product. With that, I would like to say thank you, and we'll see if we have questions that we can answer for the last few minutes we have left. Let me check on my Q&A. Seems like we have 5 questions. Let's see. The first question is the phrase for a topic skin a medical or drug claim? Any claim that, so claims can be implied or explicit. A topic skin implies a disease. So yes, I would say that this claim would imply that the product treats a disease. We are not, just want to make sure that, we provide regulatory opinions. We're not attorneys. If there's something, depending on the risk that you want to take, we always recommend to reach out to an attorney as well. My opinion is, yes, when I looked at a topic skin, I would perceive that as a product that treats a disease. Second question, how many participants do we need for consumer surveys in order to show statistical significance? That's a great general question, actually. I did not mention. So for any statistical analysis, you need to come up with what we call a power calculation. And that is based on the type of outcome measure. For a lot of, that I can think of, for a lot of cosmetic outcome measures, let's use again the wrinkles example, the effect is very small. Unless you're doing a procedure, right, which is then not a cosmetic. The effect of a cosmetic product on wrinkles, it's very small. And in order to see a very small effect statistically, you need a very large number of participants. So it will depend on the outcome measure. If it's expected that the change with a product is very large, if we're talking about a color of hair, for example, then the change is very, very large, it's very almost obvious, right? It will change. Then the number of participants they will need will be much small to see that change statistically. So I hope that makes sense. Next question, how can we define sample size to be statistical significant? What significance do you recommend? Okay, so it's pretty similar. So you need to do a power calculation based on the expected change. And then what significance do you recommend? So I'm not sure if you're actually asking about what we call p-value. It's always used as 0.05, which is 95% of the time that effect would be seen. Statistical methods, there are many different ones, will depend on your specific study, which method it's used, and that will require a little bit more time for us to discuss the statistics, but just reach out to us with a study that you have in mind, or the claim, and we can help you with specific statistics. Next question, when talking about a claim that is easily challenged or litigated, who initiates that? A competitor, FTC, FDA, or other agencies? All of them, they can all initiate. A lot of times is a competitor, but it can also be the FDA or FTC if they come across that claim. We've seen all of them. the last few claims that I presented, the clinically proven, statistically proven, that type of claim, it's a lot of times challenged by the FTC because they govern false advertising, but it can also be competitors. Okay, so there are a lot of more questions popping up. I think I lost the last one. Okay, let's see. How long number of years is a claim study good for? The way I'm interpreting the question is that whether the data, that study data can be used after 20 years or 30 years. So if a study was done, let's say in the 90s, but that's still good to be used now. In the answer is it depends, because you need to look at what is your product and how your product is related to the product or ingredient that was used 20 years ago. But data is data, right? So the data was true then, will be true now. But the question is, does that product used on that study apply to the product that you have now? Next question, how would you be able to substantiate a number of uses claim? Number of uses claim. So Heather asked, can you please send me an email on that? I'm not sure what you being just reached out to me in an email will clarify. I'd like to go through all the questions. I'm not sure what you're asking. Just send me an email, Heather. Is there a risk level between skincare cosmetics versus color cosmetics? Claims inquiries long lasting. Okay, long lasting is a very common type of claim in cosmetics. And is there a difference between skincare versus color for long lasting? So it has to apply to the product, right? So you're talking about, for example, for skincare, long lasting would be, did you measure on your study, or do you have evidence that that cream that you apply to the wrinkles, after you stop using that cream, you still have the benefit of reduction in wrinkles after a week? As long as you have measured that, then you can show that claim. You can use that claim. For color, will basically be the same. There's not a specific number of days, if that's what you're asking. I would say it will depend on the product and how the consumers will perceive. So it's good to have opinions. If you're looking at color, hair color lasts. I'm not sure how many days, and so it would be good to have for example, consumer survey to know what do they expect to be a long lasting. Is the color lasting for the next time that I wash my hair? Is it 2 days, or is it going to last until a month? So you would need data from a consumer survey to know what that means. Let's see, we have 5 more minutes. I think we can go through more. Is the presentation available? I found it valuable, would like to share to the team. Just reach out to us. I would have to ask our administrative team. I do not know the answer. Just reach out to me and we'll let you know how you can access it. I access the presentation. Next question is, if clinically proven is easily challenged, could we say clinically tested instead? Yes. That is a lot. It's much easier to substantiate a clinically tested than a clinically proven. Basically, when we say that something's clinically proven, the word proven means that it will basically work 100% of the time. So the consumer will see that as, this product's always going to work for me. Which is not the case. When you say clinically tested, you're just saying that the product was tested in humans. It still might not work for you. Next question, does tear-free fall under hypoallergenic claims. So hypoallergenic really means allergy. Tear-free is more of a safe. No, it's not allergy. So would not be the same. Tear-free is different. You need to ensure that the product will not irritate the eyes, and it's not because of allergy. Okay. Is the claim exfoliate dead skin cells a drug or cosmetic claim? Exfoliate dead skin cells, it's not a drug claim. You not exfoliate, if it's not impacting the structure or function of the skin, then it's not. Exfoliate is more of a cleaning, cleansing, so it'll be okay in cosmetics. Would the slide be shared? Please again, let us know if you like the access to the presentation. We'll let you know. Just send us an email. Product reviews testimonials, for example, at Amazon, can be considered as a support. I'm really glad you asked this question. I forgot to add this to the presentation. Similar to when we discussed focus groups, testimonials are not considered to be reliable and competent data to substantiate the claim. Okay, so those are not testimonials will not substantiate a claim. They can always be similar to any other marketing programs that are done around the product. They can be used as marketing tools, or testimonials can be used as marketing tools, but they do not substantiate the claim. Let's see, we have 2 more questions. Will this deck be sent to us via email? Again, send us reach out to us via email if you'd like to know if we can, how the slides are available. And then last one, how does industry substantiate suitable for all skin types? Again, you just need the data, right? So it actually depends if you want to, if that part of the claim is related to safety or efficacy. If you have the claim general like this, suitable for all skin types, it implies that it's for both. The product is both safe for all skin types, also efficacious. And again, I have to look at what's the outcome measure if you're looking at wrinkles. Then you need data that was tested in participants with all the skin types. And that is a very common practice. There are a lot of contract organizations that design and conduct studies, and they will specifically ask the sponsor what kind of skin type you're looking at. And if you say, oh, I want to claim for all skin types, they will recruit participants that have from the most sensitive skin to not sensitive skin at all. If you say all skin types, you need to test in all of the skin types. Basically, it's free practice 1 to 5. But the companies that design studies and conduct studies will tell you. And the last one, I asked about the exfoliate that is skin due to FDA issue a warning letter for companies using this claim in peels. Okay, so if the intent of the product is to affect the structure or function of the skin rather than the intent of the product was to cleansing, then would be a drug claim. So it depends what the product is and what the intent of the product was. And with that, we are exactly 1 hour. Would like to thank you all for participating today. And if you have further questions, let us know. We'll love to help you. And I'll talk to you next time.